Good morning. My name is Priscilla. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm excited to be with you this morning. Our first reading this morning does come from Cole Arthur Riley's new book, Black Liturgies, and it's in the form of a letter to those with heads bowed too long. I'm writing this letter from bed. I lie here on my left side, peeking my right hand from underneath the empty duvet to type. It's not practical, but it is necessary because I'm in pain again and depressed again, and this is all I have to give today. I've waited months to begin, far too many to admit to my editor now. I wanted upright Cole to write this book. Upright and at the 18th century oak desk I bought to make me feel big, like a real writer. Instead, I write this book of liturgies under sheets stained from last night's pumpkin curry. Beside me is a nightstand covered in medications, half-drank mugs of tea, and a littering of elaborate skincare I haven't touched in weeks. I don't feel very big today. But just now, the man I try to love creaks the door open slowly, carefully. He perches at the far end of the bed without speaking, giving me space to adjust to another person in the room. Then he places a bowl of grapes on top of the duvet and nudges it towards me. I pause, stretch out a twitchy arm, and pop one grape into each side of my mouth, and he scoots closer. A hand to my leg, the legs that have only risen to go to the bathroom and back for a week. Closer then. If you never write another word again, and instead of finishing, he just stares at me, nods, and I know. On his way out, he takes what mugs he can and closes the door behind him. I don't know what dignity is, not cognitively, but I know what it feels like to be loved, to receive honor, to be encountered as a human, not because of any demonstration of performance of such, but because in mystery, your very being is a miracle, your existence a delicate stitch in the cosmos. Dignity will never depend on anyone's belief in it, certainly not your own. It is not born of writing, even excellent writing, or excellent research, or beautiful architecture, or good parenting. It is inherent. If I never write another word, my dignity cannot be diminished. And yet, the world has a choice to honor or not to honor. The toll this choice takes has very real implications on our rights, our wealth, our justice, our children, and even our perceptions of dignity, but never dignity itself. If my hands can take it, I'm going to wash my hair today. Wash day is my dignity ritual. It requires precisely the same tenderness and patience the world withholds from Black women. In a world that demeans this body, these hands, and this scalp, I, in my mystery paradox, am required to meet them with grave compassion. I let my fingers dance and dip, freeing every tangle. I cradle each tendril like gold as it passes through the Denman brush. What used to feel like a punishment has become an honoring. It is liturgy of reverence. I don't need the liturgy in order to become dignified, but it reminds me of the miracle of the inherent beauty of life lived in this body, with these particular hands, with this particular curl pattern. Wash Day asked me to look up, to behold. Our liturgies begin with dignity because that is where any kind of liberation begins, with an awareness that you are worthy of so much more than whatever form your chains have taken today. For now, you are here, breathing, being, granting a gift that cannot be replicated, your simple, miraculous, necessary existence. Believing with you. C for Cole. Our scripture reading this morning comes from Mark chapter 1, starting at verse 32. That evening, after sunset, the people brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door, and Jesus healed many who had various diseases. He also drove out many demons, but he would not let the demons speak because they knew who he was. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Jesus replied, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." So he traveled through Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. Today, I want us to talk about the importance of being an explorer, liberator, and caretaker of your very own spirit. I'm really going to preach about self-care despite the fact that this buzz term is annoying and privileged sounding. But at least it's slightly improved from its formerly popular cousin, self-help. If self-help is about fixing something, then self-care thinks you're already great. There is a strong biblical case for self-love, self-care, and Sabbath rest. One of the most prominent biblical commandments about self-care is love your neighbor as yourself. Because the assumption behind that is if you have to believe in your own inherent worthiness. Love, after all, is an act of self-giving, and you can't give very much from a source that is depleted. Now, self-care can be defined in any number of ways, so let's share what it will mean in the context of this sermon. I'm not talking about spa treatments, although I have nothing against them. For our purposes, let's think of it as the practices that we engage in to demonstrate love of life, love of each other, and love of self. But given the pace of life during our modern digital age, how do we find time to love life, each other, and ourselves? Americans are profoundly burned out. 2/3 of workers report working more than 40 hours a week. On average, we check our emails more than 70 times a day. And the average attention span has now declined to just 47 seconds on any particular screen. If we don't believe that work should define us, then what are we doing, and how can we try to make another way? Shabbat, or Sabbath, is the biblical solution, a time set apart from ordinary time. Now, this used to be a lot easier. There were closing laws that prohibited businesses from operating on Sundays. People remember that. People in this room remember that. And the culture shift seems so sad that we couldn't imagine now businesses choosing to give up profits for a cultural norm that says stay home and hang out with your people. Now, our culture used to be more designed to afford people time with God, family, and rest. We didn't all carry around these devices that are designed for addiction in our pockets. The origins of Sabbath, of course, are the creation story. Even God rested. And the practice was codified into the 10 Commandments. Our spiritual tanks are on E, and the great physician has prescribed mandated rest. And we keep ignoring doctors' orders because other demands are louder. Joy Berge recently sent Kip and I an article called "Why Reviving a 2,600-Year-Old Spiritual Practice Made My Life Better." With it, she sent a personal message that said, "I love the idea of reviving Sabbath for people other than observant Jews, both as a gift to the earth and a gift to our own over-busy selves. I wonder if there would be interest among the congregation in developing Sabbath practices." Thank you for that prompt, Joy. We all need a respite from modern life, and the approaching Lenten season is a fine time to experiment with the Sabbath practice. Are you curious to know what impulses would have to be put aside in order to make this weekly practice happen for you? What might be born? What might you create? How might you play with a deliciously free 24 hours each week? What would you do with the restoration on the other side? Consider yourself formally invited to Sabbath for the 6 weeks of Lent, from sundown on Fridays to sundown on Saturdays, or another day of your choosing. As a community, let those of us who feel called to it fast from tech and work and devote ourselves to making time for fellowship, reflection, and rest. And let's get together, maybe for a Shabbat meal, and share what it's doing for our souls. The scripture passage that we read from the Greek scriptures, also known as the New Testament, I could have made another selection that also feels very relevant to our topic today from the Hebrew scriptures. It has something to say about our worthiness, our exhaustion, and our self-care. It comes from Isaiah chapter 40, and I'm going to read it to you with a slight twist. In some places, I've taken the liberty of substituting the pronouns for God with pronouns that refer to you and yours, so that in hearing them, you're reminded of the divinity that resides within your very being. May this reading remind you that we were created by the Creator and have been gifted with holy creativity. I invite you now to rest your eyes, if that feels comfortable, and receive this holy affirmation. Do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? God sits enthroned above the circle of earth, and its people look like grasshoppers. God stretches out the skies like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live under. God reduces the privileged to nothing and throws the rulers of this world into chaos. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root on earth, then God blows on them and they wither, and a storm wind sweeps them away like chaff. To whom can you be compared? Or who is your equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes and look to the heaven and ask yourself, who created all these, if not the one who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name? Because God is so great in power and mighty and in strength, not a single one of them is missing. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. This God will not grow tired or weary. With a depth of understanding no one can fathom. God gives strength to the weary and empowers the powerless. Young women grow tired and weary. Young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on eagle's wings. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and never tire. You can open your eyes now. Did it feel like a holy affirmation from the Word of God for it to acknowledge your exhaustion, just how tired and weary you feel? And then as an added bonus, we get a promise that our strength will be renewed by the one who does not grow weary. Although here we see a distinction between God and Jesus in these two different passages. For while the Creator God does not grow tired or weary, in the other passage we witness the very human Jesus dealing with what seems to be feelings of depletion. From the very beginning, the passage has a dominant culture urgency that makes the reader feel anxious, at least this reader. We get to witness a day in the life of a very busy, in-demand Jesus, and sandwiched in between, we get the perfect picture of a respite that is intentionally carved out and set apart. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, "Everyone is looking for you." Let me tell you right now, everyone will always be looking for you. Your inbox will always be full. You'll always be staring down a staggering to-do list. The obligations and requests will never have mercy. not to mention the toll our own expectations inflict on our collective psyche, the emotional labor, abusive supervisors, uncivil colleagues, the fear of retaliation, the doing more with less mentality. We must take matters into our own hands and create our own dignity rituals. Sometimes you must steal away in the cover of dark to a solitary place with your phone on Do Not Disturb. When the pace of life overwhelms you, how can you right the ship? The approach is different for each of us, but we must learn the rhythms that allow us to operate in our magic. And when things are off kilter, we must give God an opportunity to renew our strength. This passage from Mark gives us a picture of Jesus, the healer who is interested in your healing specifically. You must be an explorer, liberator, and caretaker of your own spirit with God's help, because no one else can do it for you. In fact, some people you encounter will keep demanding that you go more, faster, and higher. Capitalism has us well trained. It's so easy to be under its toxic spell. Renewing your strength means experimenting with the best way to approach your inner work and solitude. I agree with Bell Hooks, who said, "Knowing how to be solitary is central to the art of loving." What do you need to feel restored? You may need to do what makes your heart sing. You may need to do absolutely nothing except to sit quietly and pay attention to the rise and fall of your own breath. We all need to use our God-given creativity. Some of us can get away with being creative every once in a while. Others begin to wilt if they can't be watered with their own creative juices more frequently. Some of us need to seek out intimate connection, whether it's verbal, physical, or both. Some of us need to be left alone. What can you do to explore a new part of yourself so that, like Jesus, you can do what you came here to do? Allow the Holy One to renew your strength so that you can soar on wings like eagles, so that you might run and not grow weary and walk and not be faint. Have you been trying to restore yourself, dear one, instead of surrendering to God, also known as love, trusting that the one who created you doesn't need an owner's manual because love is the inventor of your very spirit? In Cole Arthur Riley's description, she says she doesn't know what dignity is cognitively, but she knows what it feels like. She says, to be loved, to receive honor, to be encountered as a human, not because of any demonstration of performance, but because in mystery, your very being is a miracle. Your existence, a delicate stitch in the cosmos. Dignity will never depend on anyone's belief in it, certainly not your own. She reminds us that the world may choose not to honor your dignity, your inherent worth. The world may just keep demanding more and critique your output. This is why you must be an explorer, liberator, and caretaker of your own spirit. I may be in the minority of ministers who would say this, although I think Kip is in there with me. The only belief that I care about is your belief in yourself and the degree to which you believe love holds you in high esteem and wants you to do the same. Self-care is our holy duty. You are called to love life, love each other, and love yourself hard like you mean it, the fierce way. If you need a model other than Jesus, just look at how you try to show up for others. You're ready to throw down to protect your loved ones, but prone sometimes to belittle yourself. When that happens, say to yourself, who do you think you are to dare treat this child of God this way? Then steal away, get alone with God, and admit just how weary you are. And remind Dr. Love that they promise to restore you, to renew your strength, and to help you soar on wings like eagles. Create a respite for yourself so that your dreams get bigger and better, more vivid and divine. One of the kindest things you can do for yourself is to ask what you need right now in any given moment and try to find a way to meet that need one gentle step at a time, despite what others are demanding of you. That is what self-care looks like, and there is a biblical case for it. May you create space to love life, love each other, and love yourself as you create your own dignity rituals. As we were reminded today, our liturgies begin with dignity because that is where any kind of liberation begins, with an awareness that you are worthy of so much more than whatever forms your chains have taken. This is God's good news. Amen.